takes pleasure in attracting a stellar list of speakers that address today's most relevant issues. The club's place as a refuge for rich discussion and networking has never wavered after 123 seasons.
We are dedicated to encouraging debate on the issues that matter to this city, this province, and this country.
The Canadian Club is one of the most important podiums anywhere in the world that a Canadian can speak to, tell Canadians what it is that they think, develop those thoughts. And so I want to thank you for that very, very much.
Please join me in thanking our esteemed panelists today.
Through our programs and events, including our youth and young leaders programs, our diversity partnerships, our joint events, and our media and social media opportunities, we offer you access to dynamic political, social, and business figures from abroad and right here at home.
The platform from which the eloquence of Canada has flowed all of that time, whether it be business, education, politics, sports, arts, and culture. If someone wants to say something to Canadians about this country and about the future of this country, this is the venue you choose.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Anita McCuitt, and I am the president of the Canadian Club of Toronto. Today, we're joined by the Honourable Peter Bethlenfalvy to discuss the Ontario government's response to COVID-19 and their plans to build a more accessible, digital, and responsive government. Before we dive into today's topic, here's some information about how you can participate with us. If you find that your video is slow, press click here to switch stream, and it should help. Your video quality may decrease, but the audio will stay strong. If you have a question, just click on the questions tab, and you can enter your question in the window, and it will go directly to our moderator, and we really want your questions today. Thank you to today's event sponsors, Bruce Power, PwC, and Waste Connections of Canada. The Canadian Club is a nonprofit, and we've been bringing Canadians together for 124 seasons, and we could only do that with the generosity of our sponsors. So thank you once again. Now to introduce today's speaker. The Honourable Peter Bethlenfalvy is President of the Treasury Board of Ontario and Minister responsible for digital and data transformation. Prior to entering the public service, Minister Bethlenfalvy served in senior leadership roles for several financial institutions, including TD Securities and DBRS. And throughout his career, the minister has been dedicated to ensuring long-term financial stability. Minister Bethlenfalvy also serves as the MPP for Pickering-Uxbridge. After his remarks, the minister will be joined in conversation by Adrienne Batra, Editor-in-Chief of the Toronto Sun. One of the club's traditions that has not changed in this virtual world is a toast that we make to our country at the beginning of every event. So we normally do this in person, but if you've got a glass of water or coffee or wine nearby, let's raise it, make a nod to the screen, and toast Canada. To Canada. Minister, I will turn the Canadian Club podium over to you.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, Anita, and thank you for having me. I want to take a moment to recognize the tremendous work the Canadian Club has done adapting to the realities of COVID-19. You know, you've done a terrific job transitioning to a virtual platform while continuing your 120-year tradition of rich, stimulating discussions. You know, it's because of your ability to be flexible in these unprecedented times that we are here for this event. So thank you for doing your part. During this pandemic, I've been thinking a lot about past Canadian leaders who have faced down crises throughout our nation's history. One individual who comes to my mind is C.D. Howe. You may have heard him of the name before. You know, Howe served in Mackenzie King's government during World War II and was integral to our country's transformation from, as the historian Harold Innis put it, hewers of wood and drawers of water, to one of the world's leading industrial economies. Howe saw that in times of crises, governments cannot be focused solely on addressing the immediate problems they are facing. And those of us, who have been entrusted with public office need to see ourselves as one link in the long chain of history. When we make decisions, we cannot simply look to our next mandate or even the next decade. We need to understand the impact our decisions will have on our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and act accordingly. How did this? By transforming our economy. And I'm excited to say we are following in his footsteps by bringing government services into the 21st century. In my role as president of the Treasury Board, I manage the province's expenditures and oversee the employment of our province's incredible public servants. Like you, we're adapting our team at the Ontario Public Service to the new normal by moving staff to remote work where and when it makes sense to do so. And we've put vital programs in place to respond to COVID-19 while ensuring services are delivered seamlessly, accessibly, and most importantly, safely. Early in the pandemic, Premier Ford appointed me to head the Future State Modernization Committee. And the job of this committee is straightforward, but it's far from simple. We are tasked with breaking down the information and data silos that currently hamper ministries and departments from effectively working together to find solutions. Updating and modernizing the legacy systems that slow down government work and make it more difficult and frustrating for you to interact with your government. And building a culture in government that embraces change and puts data-driven decision-making and user experience at the core of our thinking. But this wasn't the start of our government's work. We knew even before we took office in 2018 that the public services Ontarians rely on lag behind the often innovative, convenient solutions offered in the private sector. That's why one of our first acts as a government was to commission EY Canada to conduct a comprehensive line-by-line review of the previous 15 years of provincial spending. And we found opportunities across government to improve the way services were delivered and, in 2019, launched our SMART initiative strategy to bring government service delivery into the 21st century. And then COVID hit. The pandemic showed us that while we were headed in the right direction, there was still work to be done. And we got a lesson in the power of collaboration. For example, when we developed the COVID Alert app, developed by my superstar team in the Ontario Digital Service, and in partnership with Shopify and the federal government, COVID Alert gives Ontarians a defense against COVID-19 that sits in your pocket and never compromises your privacy. To support important, innovative work like this, Premier Ford and I released Ontario Onwards, Ontario's COVID-19 action plan for a people-focused government. This groundbreaking plan includes more than 30 projects that will improve the way people and businesses interact with their government, saving time while making government operations way more efficient, and with the goal of providing more convenient, more reliable, and more accessible programs and services for the people of Ontario. And like everything our government does, we consult with experts, stakeholders, and the people of Ontario before we design and implement our plans. This ensures that we have a better understanding of what people need and want from their government. When COVID-19 hit, we were able to quickly put many of our initiatives in action. Early in the pandemic, we launched our COVID-19 web portal at ontario.ca/COVID-19, a one-stop shop for all the latest guidelines, information, and updates on this pandemic. Nous sommes intervenus vite et avant lancer notre portail COVID-19 sur le site web à ontario.ca vers COVID-19. Ce portail permet d'obtenir en un seul endroit toutes les dernières lignes directrices ainsi que les renseignements les plus récents et les mises à jour sur cette pandémie. Over 25 million users have used the website since our launch, using this easy-to-access information to keep themselves and their loved ones safe and healthy. We also knew that we had to make it easier for Ontarians to meet with their doctor while continuing to follow social distancing guidelines. We did this by significantly expanding our digital-first approach for healthcare, making it more convenient for you to meet with your doctor virtually and get the care you need. Some of our other Ontario Onwards projects push major structural reforms to the way government operates, bringing best practices of business to the business of government. And I saw clearly in the private sector just how much money can be saved when you harness the power of bulk buying. And that's what we're doing as part of supply chain centralization work. Provincially, we can save up to $1 billion annually by buying bulk goods and services schools, hospitals, and other service providers need. And this work ensures we have a steady, predictable supply of vital personal protective equipment to keep our frontline heroes safe throughout this pandemic. And that's why, in partnership with my colleague, Lisa Thompson, Minister of Government and Consumer Services, we launched Supply Ontario, the new central government agency that will coordinate all government purchasing. Supply Ontario is also helping us build up Ontario's domestic production of the supplies our schools and hospitals need. And we're opening up new opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses to compete with larger traditional suppliers. Now, I spoke earlier about making more government services available online. In order to do this on a broad scale, we need to update the way Ontarians verify their identity. That's why one of our signature Ontario Onwards initiatives is building a secure and convenient digital identity wallet. J'ai parlé plutôt de faire en sorte que plus de services gouvernementaux soient accessibles en ligne. Pour que cela se produise à grande échelle, nous devons actualiser la façon dont les Ontariennes et les Ontariens vérifient leur identité. C'est pourquoi l'une de nos initiatives phare du plan Faire progresser l'Ontario consiste à établir un portefeuille d'identité numérique sûr et pratique. Digital identity lets you verify your identity and interact with your government safely and easily from anywhere and any device. It would eliminate the need to go in person to a Service Ontario location just to show your physical driver's license, health card, or birth certificate. Of course, we'll be preserving in-person options for those who prefer them. But remember, one more person online is one less person in line. The last initiative I'll highlight for you provides us with what I think is an historic province building moment. I'm excited to be working closely with my colleague, Minister of Infrastructure, Laurie Scott, to expand access to high quality broadband and cellular networks to currently underserved areas of our province. Je suis excité à l'idée de travailler en étroite collaboration avec ma collègue, la ministre de l'Infrastructure, Laurie Scott, en vue d'élargir l'accès à des réseaux cellulaires et à large bande de qualité pour les régions insuffisamment desservies de la province. Our broadband expansion plan will close the gap between urban, suburban, and rural communities, ensuring everyone can connect to high-speed internet no matter where they call home. That means it will be easier to access government services online, anytime, anywhere. It also unlocks the potential for individuals and entrepreneurs to work remotely anywhere in our province and unleashes countless opportunities for job creation. Put simply, this will cause profound positive impacts across our society for years to come. Now, of course, while we have embarked on this ambitious plan to improve public services, we know that change in government is not always easy. Bien entendu, nous avons mis en place cet ambitieux plan visant à améliorer les services publics. Mais nous savons qu'il n'est pas toujours facile d'apporter des changements au sein du gouvernement. Achieving change in government requires a will and a drive to enable that shift. As my time in banking taught me, you need to plan for the long term by building a solid foundation now. You need to listen to a wide range of voices, not just those who agree with you, but those that challenge your thinking. And you need a path forward that's marked by deliberate and meaningful change. And in many ways, it's the opposite of what is easy and expedient in politics. Instead of making big, flashy promises, we're building a solid foundation that will keep the people of Ontario protected and supported for years to come. We're doing that through all these initiatives and through the dedication of individuals like my team at the Ontario Digital Service. We're supported in this work by a highly skilled team of experts currently serving on our Digital and Data Task Force, made up of private sector experts and chaired by Linda Mantilla. For those of you who don't know Linda, she is a terrific chair for this task force. Currently, she serves on the board of Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center. Prior to this, she served in leading positions at Manulife Financial and RBC, where she oversaw extensive modernization and digitization work, much like she is now doing as chair of our task force. And these individuals bring a digital lens to ensure we're improving public services in a way that holds tangible benefits for the people of Ontario, while safeguarding their personal data and privacy. These big changes will be supported by our new Ontario Onwards Acceleration Fund. We've committed $500 million over 4 years to promote innovation and technological advancement. The fund will bring to life projects that make government services more digitally accessible, reduce red tape, improve government purchasing, and create a more responsive and flexible public service. It will also help us spur innovation by providing seed funding to new projects that show promise. This is how the best performing jurisdictions in the US, Australia, and right here in Canada fund their transformational projects, and we're taking a page out of their books. Collectively, these initiatives are helping us address problems in the short term and crafting long-term solutions that will strengthen and protect our institutions for generations to come. I liken it to compound interest. You can invest a very small amount of money now, an amount that may not seem to make a big difference, but over time, the interest builds. As in government, our successes and innovations build on each other, ultimately leaving you with a huge payoff in the future. Of course, we can't accomplish our goals without shining a light on ourselves. Put another way, we can't make the right decisions if we aren't guided by our own data. And as I've learned throughout my career in finance, you can't manage what you can't measure. That's why today we're launching the broader public sector workforce transparency initiative as part of our action plan. As some context, the broader public sector consists of all government agencies and organizations that deliver the programs and services Ontarians rely on. Now, you may not know this, but currently the broader public sector represents over 90% of all types of spending, excluding interest. Currently, the workforce data we have about the broader public sector is fragmented. Until now, we've had to supplement the details we receive from our broader public sector partners with second-hand data from places like Stats Canada and the Ministry of Labor's collective bargaining data. As we're doing across government, we're breaking down the concrete reinforced silos that prevent us from having the deep, granular details we need. By ensuring we're accessing better quality data and maintaining consistent information sharing, we can build better services for the people of Ontario. So as part of Ontario Onwards, we will begin collecting this information by requiring regular reporting from our partners in the broader public sector, providing us with a level of transparency and accountability that we've never had before. And with these changes, we'll be better equipped to measure how taxpayer dollars are spent, which means we'll be able to track their effectiveness more closely. But this is only the beginning. We have big plans in store to make Ontario's public services more nimble, citizen-focused, and convenient. If you're interested, you can learn more about our vision at ontario.ca/onwards. By leveraging emerging technology, ensuring our decisions are informed by clear, measurable data, and enhancing digital options, we can build a government that's truly responsive to the needs of the people we serve. All of this will help us fight back against COVID-19, recover from this pandemic, and face the post-COVID world stronger than ever. We are seizing this moment to build a modern, adaptable, and responsive public service that will help us confront the challenges of tomorrow, whatever they may be. But we can't do this alone. We need to work across party lines, across borders, and with academia and the private sector to provide a truly innovative and versatile response to the pandemic. Because as I often say, nobody has a monopoly on a good idea. Harnessing the ingenuity and innovation of Ontarians, we know that everyone can contribute to our fight against COVID-19 in a meaningful way. That's why it's so important that we hear from you, leading professionals and sectors across our society, about how we can simplify the government's role in people's lives and their businesses, and put them at the center of everything we do. Because in the midst of a global pandemic, one thing is for certain: the world has changed and government must change with it. I look forward to continuing this journey with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Minister Bethlenfalvy, it's wonderful to see you, albeit in the virtual setting. I want to thank you for your remarks and, of course, speaking to the Canadian Club audience, an engaged audience that is acutely tuned into what is going on and what all levels of government are doing with respect to the COVID-19 response. So let's sort of start there. Let's talk about the overall response from your government, from the provincial government of Ontario, in terms of the most recent lockdown 2.0, shall we say, between Toronto for Toronto and Peel. As you know, of course, there's been a lot of pushback against that. And so, Minister, you're around those discussions, you're around those tables, making the decision about what and who gets to open and close. And I'm wondering if you can comment on that.
Sure. Great to be here at the Canadian Club, and of course with you again, Adrian, virtually. It's a difficult time. It's a challenging time for everybody. And, we're seeing spiking cases, not just here in Ontario and parts of Ontario. We're seeing them across Canada and across the world. So it is understandably a very difficult time that we're in right now. Our number one priority, of course, has to be the health and safety of individuals and families, but that includes businesses as well in Ontario. And so some of the actions that we've taken based on the Chief Medical Officer's advice on the public health table has been to move some zones from green to yellow, yellow to orange, orange to red, and of course, ultimately, Toronto and Peel to lockdown. These are not steps that we take lightly. And as you can see every day as the Premier faces the nation and faces the public, how difficult and challenging these decisions are and how much they weigh on all of us. One thing that we won't forget, though, is that we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through this together. We're going to band together in many communities. My riding of Pickering, Uxbridge, I was on a town hall yesterday with a bunch of businesses in Uxbridge, and businesses are hurting. Families are hurting. Individuals are hurting. So we have to continue to work together in our communities as a province, and we will get through this. It'll take a bit more time, but like I always say, do all the things that you need to do. We will beat this together while you wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands. We will get through this.
I appreciate the notion, and we have heard the sentiment repeatedly, that we are all in this together. But we know right now, as of just a couple of hours ago, the Premier had a roundtable discussion with business groups from all over the province of Ontario. And the message was very clear. This is unfair. It's uneven application of the rules and the bylaws and the legislation. We have proven that we can, and we've invested a lot of money. A lot of small businesses invested a lot of money into keeping their businesses open and adhere to the rules and regulations that your government put forward. Yet they got shut down again, notably, of course, in Toronto. And so I'm wondering if that whole idea of we are all in this together is that resonating still? Because it would appear that the small business owners across Ontario, who are the backbone of our economy, are really chafing against this and pushing back, Minister.
Yeah, Adrian, I completely agree. I'll just start there. I mean, small and medium-sized businesses, they are the economic engine of this province. They're the job creators, they're the risk takers, they're putting their sweat equity into their businesses. And as I mentioned, I talked to a number of them last night and have another town hall tonight with a number of businesses. There's a number of things that we are doing, however. And we announced 600 million of supports for those businesses in the red zones and in the lockdown zones that we're picking up the electricity and gas costs. We're picking up the property tax costs. We're picking up the federal portion until the federal program comes into place, which was passed last week and being operationalized as we speak. The federal government, and we've been working very closely with the federal government, and that's what I mean as well, that we have to work together, are providing supports for rent and providing supports for wage and salaries. So there are many things that we're trying to do to help on the cost side. I would add that we've also noticed that a number of small businesses don't have their e-commerce platforms as fully developed. So we've created a fund, the Main Street Digitization Fund, where you can actually apply to help with the expertise that we have to help small businesses develop their e-commerce platform. We've also developed a fund where you can apply for money to get PPE support, money for PPE. But that's on the expense side of the equation. We've had other things in our budget in terms of employer health tax, in terms of the business education property tax, things like that to make things, because property tax, you pay it whether you're making money or not. But I would also say is we have to support our local businesses. You know, go to the curbside, order a book online, order some clothes, pick up the phone if they don't have an e-commerce platform. And I've seen that happen all over. I've seen it in Pickering, I've seen it in Uxbridge, and frankly, I've seen it right across this province where communities are working together. Municipalities are working hand in glove with us to support those local businesses. So again, I would say these are very challenging times. I really understand what some of the businesses are facing, and we're going to work together and we'll continue to listen. We're not through this yet, and we'll get through it.
Was part of the response from business, particularly in the restaurant industry, Minister, why your government is now looking at putting a cap on fees that are being put forward by that many restaurants use for their delivery services?
Well, there's a range of things that we're going to continue to do. For example, allowing alcohol purchases to be via takeout. So there's a bunch of red tape that we can make it easier and simpler for businesses to be able to do what they do best. And we'll continue to focus on those sort of things. But Adrian, I would also say that this dialogue that we have with businesses, with individuals, has to continue because this is a complex environment that we're in. We're very seized. I'm very seized. I know the Premier and our government are very seized with trying to put in as much support as we can to the small business. I would add that as part of our budget, we had three pillars. We had to protect, because as the president of the Treasury Board, I'm going to put all the fiscal firepower we have to protect the health and safety of the people of Ontario. And I've made that commitment to the public before, and will continue to make the funding necessary to our healthcare workers, our hospitals, our long-term care facilities. But we have a pillar of support, and I've addressed some of the things that we're providing, not only to businesses, but to families, such as family support, continuing the $200 per child in a family. We'll continue to make those types of investments to support people, families, and businesses as we bridge to the other side. And that gets to the third pillar, starting to invest in a recovery, kind of moving our weight from our left foot to our right foot. We are going to recover. So we've started that process, $4.5 billion to support the businesses in terms of recovery. And I mentioned some of them, the employer health tax, the energy costs to provide breaks on energy. So we'll continue to put the resources behind helping small businesses, medium-sized businesses, all businesses, families, and individuals get through to the other side of this pandemic.
And in the name of all of this, it's to make all of our lives easier in some way, shape, or form. And you have been tasked with a very important job doing just that, some of which you've just touched on in your speech to us here at the Canadian Club. I want to touch on if you can go into some of the specifics, Minister, with respect to the digital wallet. Now, when this was discussed a while back, there was a lot of buzz around it, a lot of excitement that you're simply going to be able to have all of your identification and all of the information that one would need simply accessible right there. And as a parent of a kid who has to sometimes go find his health card or his vaccination card or all of these things, making this easy for citizens, for Ontarians. Walk us through that. What does that look like? And talk about not only then the verification process, because that sounds like it's challenging, and then most importantly, what so many people are concerned about is the safety and preservation of their privacy.
Okay, well, you touched on a lot there. I'll try to distill.
And I'm going to give you all sorts of time to unpack all of that.
Well, I can use that time. After all, I'm a politician, so thank you for giving me that rope. First off, privacy and security. So that's the first thing we look at to make sure any application that we develop has to be private, embrace privacy concerns, and work closely with the Information and Privacy Commissioner, because that's paramount. And secondly, secure, protection against fraud and in this environment. One thing that COVID has really has given the opportunities is those nefarious types who are trying to hack everything we do. Mm-hmm. So that's paramount. Number two, the COVID Alert app is a good example of that we can put things together pretty quickly. Now, the COVID Alert app, we put together through the Ontario Digital Service, worked with Shopify and BlackBerry to make it secure, make sure we had the right code, made sure it was user tested, and then worked with the federal government, the Canadian Digital Service, because if it's good for Ontario, and we were the first to roll it out, it's good for the rest of Canada. And so we demonstrated with that application that we can do things if we focus our minds on what the goal is, that it's safe and it's secure, but it's also working. Over 5 million people have downloaded it, 5.4 million people. Thousands of people have been protected because they put the key in that said they were positive for COVID and alerted their network of people who had come into close contact. So that's an example of how we can embrace technology in a short period of time and effectively for the people of Ontario. Now, on the digital identity wallet, you mentioned vaccination. Right now, 500,000 parents have to take out the old card and show when they go for a daycare center to get a spot to show that vaccination card. And of course, it gets updated every year and you've got to keep doing it. If you travel, and particularly in some parts of the world where you need your vaccination records, paper-based. So there's another example when we're about to embark on the biggest vaccination program, probably in the history of the country, certainly one of the biggest ever. It's all paper-based unless we digitize that. It's an example. If we can put that on your digital wallet safely and securely, you've got your records right there, and you're able to use that in multiple formats. So that's one example. So Rome wasn't built in a day. We've started consultations already. We have a plan to move forward and do elements of the digitization and the digital identity. But it's just one example of what we're working on to just bring Ontarians. People want that. I'll give you another quick example. Before the pandemic, we had the capability to do your doctor's visit online, but very few people were aware, and very few people, they go in to see their doctor, going in the walk-in clinic. Well, COVID changed that. And now a lot of people go and do their consultations online. It's safer, it's quicker, it's easier. And that's the same not just for physical health, but for mental health. We're seeing an explosion in the digital world for uses of mental health supports, whether it's for young people, old people, people out of a job, you name it, right across society. So the Chief Justice and the court system, when we're in lockdown, you can't go to court. So there's many areas where the justice system has modernized and digitized. So we'll continue to communicate and consult with all Ontarians, because I think at the end of the day, this is what the people want. They want their lives to be simpler and easier, more convenient, accessible, and as I said, reliable, safe, and secure.
And Minister, as COVID-19 has certainly accelerated a lot of things, and in terms of the work that you're doing, modernizing the government, digitization strategies, I'm in an industry that knows what digitization can do. You know, it takes a hit on jobs and your bottom line and things like that. But applying that to the government's perspective, if we are, as a citizenry, able to access so many government services online, we won't require as many staff as jobs. How does that affect the civil service?
Well, actually, this is not about jobs, job cuts. In fact, I think there are lots of jobs, and we need more people for the jobs of tomorrow. What the key thing is that the transition occur from, you know, as I talked about, Harold Innes talking about the drawers of water, the hewers of wood, to into the industrial economy, into a digital economy. What's critical about that, though, is the transition phase, because this is what people want. This is it's going to be driven. Ultimately, it's happening around the world. Ontario's really well placed to go this way because we've got incredible talent. We've got innovation, technology companies, individuals, a diverse economy. So this is the future. What's critical, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit in the banking sector with the automated teller machines, the same argument was made that there'd be, with an automated teller machine would mean there'd be one less teller. Well, in fact, there was one less teller, but then there were 3 jobs created for every teller lost, and that teller was retrained to do more value type jobs and was given the skills necessary to augment their delivery of customer services and products. So I think that's the nature. I met with 3 Durham transit workers in my region in Durham. We made an announcement with the federal government, putting in more money to put in electric buses and hybrid buses in the region so they'd all operate cleaner and more efficiently. And I talked to 3 motor vehicle specialists. You know, they had their overalls on. And I said, well, you've done motors all your life. What do you think about this new world? And they said they loved it. They said the hybrid, the electric vehicles, the motors, the technology is even more complicated than traditional motors. And I said, how did you get there? How did you learn all this? All about retraining. And so we're putting a lot of money into retraining, into the skilled trades, because that's where the future is. And the great people of this province that we have today will be part of that. And I think that's what's really going to propel this province forward. And, you know, Ontario has been traditionally the economic engine of this country, and I think it will be again.
Minister, I've got a lot of questions that are coming in. There's a few with respect to what you discussed in terms of the supply chain. So I'm going to try to squish a few of them together so we can get as many in. So just bear with me. It has been recently announced by your government that you will have a centralized supply chain. The Premier is talking always, and you mentioned it in your speech, Minister, about buying in bulk. And, you know, of course, that can drive down costs. How will that work? And what do you see? And what do you say to current or potential suppliers that are very concerned that your government, or any government, frankly, will just simply turn to a massive company like Amazon, for example, to give them the contract and then be the supplier?
Well, turning into Amazon really isn't what we have in mind, but where it makes sense for bulk buying through category management. We've used the example of pencils. A pencil is a pencil, and you can often bulk buy that. But there's many things that the government of Ontario purchases that are more specialized, that where small, medium-sized businesses have a competitive advantage. It's not just about price, it's the quality of the offering, quality of the product. And so there's gonna be a lot of opportunity for small, medium-sized businesses, as well as those who provide scale. And one of the ways we're doing that, Adrian, is back to the digital platform. We're going to have more of it, make it simpler and easier for businesses to compete for a range of products and services. I mean, government, through all of government. I mean, if you think of what the Ontario government is, it's over 1 million employees, and our expense base is about $185 billion. And our goods and services purchases every year is a sizable portion of our expenditures. So what's important in all of this is that we simplify the ability to bid, we We've got close to 7,000 purchasing managers right now. The Premier often talks about Canadian Tire, who has 50,000 items for sale through the SKUs and has 65 purchasing managers. So we've got to simplify that. We can't, often we see our purchasing managers that are in government competing with each other for those either bulk goods or the more specialized goods and services. So I think this is an opportunity. It's value for taxpayer money. It's going to open up the economy for competition and small and medium-sized businesses across the province to be able to compete. And I think it will end up being a good thing for the people of Ontario.
And working, of course, Minister, in concert with your colleague, Prab Sakaria, in terms of the red tape reduction. These are all things that, small businesses have been talking about, and frankly, citizens have been talking about, reducing that barrier to get services, and be it from Service Ontario or even just red tape from, getting a permit. How does all of that work together?
It's a great question. So the Ontario Onwards plan that I mentioned in my remarks, there's 4 pillars, and red tape is one of those pillars. Digital is another we've talked about, procurement, and then ultimately data and lean government, lean processes. All of these are connected. So the red tape initiative really is one where we're looking to simplify things, make things easier. And I'll give you an example that overlaps with digital. Right now, 50,000 farmers register their vehicles in person every year. Now that's red tape, but they don't have the digital credentials to be able to do it online. That's one thing that would help our farming community, and it's safe. It'll be safe and easy to do. Another is that there's about 150,000 new businesses that start up every year in Ontario. 56 of the things that they have to do to get permits and licenses have to be done in person. So we can digitize that. There's a lot of red tape there. And if we can bring it back to my riding in Pickering, Uxbridge, there's a craft brewer in Uxbridge who before COVID, gave up their jobs in Toronto to build a great craft brewer business. And they, as they built the building, they had their puppy there with them. Fast forward a couple of years later, and there was a regulation that someone found out that you couldn't serve packaged food and cheese and crackers if you had pets at the shop, even though there's wide open areas there. Mm-hmm. So the Minister of Red Tape and Health looked at the regulation and said, well, that was from 25 years ago. It doesn't make sense anymore. So now puppies can go on patios. And there was no reason at this point in this environment versus 25 years ago, the health and safety was modernized, that we could do that.
Okay. One of the comments, one of the questions that's come in, would like you to, if you could, give us a quick win that will enable digital services for Ontario citizens within the next 3 to 6 months.
Well, I can tell you a quick win that just happened was the COVID Alert app. We put that together very quickly. A quick win was the self-assessment tool on our website for students and teachers and family members to self-screen. By the way, that education self-screening website, you can see if you have some of the citizens, whether you should go into school that day. We have more people going on that. We have 30,000 people going on that website a day. Another quick win that's already happened. We took all the information that we see on cases, on community spread, on hospital utilization by public health unit, and we put it in a simple, easy format on the website. We've gotten great feedback that this is the type of website that people then can make decisions whether it's safe in their public health unit. And by the way, there's 34, and sometimes you don't even know what public health unit you're in, to see, do you have community spread? What type of businesses environment is there community spread? So those are some of the immediate wins. Obviously, standing up our supply chain agency, which we've just announced, will be a quick win. Invest Ontario is another part of the Ontario Onwards plan. The digital identity wallet will in 2021 have elements of that secure wallet put forward. So I think there's a lot of quick wins that we're going to see, not least of which is hoping to make it easier for people to renew their driver's licenses and marriage certificates and a whole bunch of things. If you go on to Service Ontario, maybe there's about 8 out of 25 registrations that are done that you can do online for your vehicle. We'll have some quick wins there next year as well.
Minister, someone in our audience would like you to give us a sense of, because, the general public may not be as familiar with the roles in government, but what they're asking specifically is, how does your role contrast or align with that of the Minister of Finance, particularly as we have a COVID-19 response?
It's a great question. I get asked that question all the time. So as president of the Treasury Board, I actually have a board of 8 members I chair. The vice chair is the Minister of Finance. There's 6 other cabinet ministers. And every program expense, so I mentioned the 185 billion, of course interest is maybe 11 billion, so call it 174 billion. A program expense has to be approved every year before the budget can be tabled. So I'm the expenditure guy. I've overseen the biggest expansion of expenditures in the history of the province. And some people ask me, how do I feel about that? And I say, I would do it all over again, because we're not going to spare an expense to protect the safety and health of individuals and families. So that's a big responsibility. Also the capital plan, 144 billion. We're building subways. A big part of the announcement that we made in Ontario Onwards is an acceleration, if you will, of the broadband investment. We had invested $315 million. We upped it by another $680 million, so close to $1 billion for underserved markets of broadband and cellular in this province. I mean, do you know that 1.4 million people live in Ontario? It's almost 10% that have virtually no service or very low service in this province. In my riding, just in North Pickering and in Uxbridge, you get dead zones. If you're a business, if you're a family member who's got a student, whether at university or taking a secondary, primary school, you're online. If you're a business trying to have an e-commerce platform, so broadband is a big part of it. So there's a bunch of things that I think that Treasury Board has the tools with which to make decisions on which priorities to fund. And then the finance minister takes that expense base, layers in the revenues, because the finance minister takes in all the tax revenues and sets tax policy, and then comes out with a budget. By the way, we'll have another budget coming up soon in the spring. So that's how the, if you will, the sausage is made in government.
Minister, we just have a few short minutes left. And the number one question that has come in from our audience conveniently happens to be the main thing I wanted to ask you as well. It has to do with the procurement of vaccines. As we move into the Christmas season, the weather is going to be changing. Canadians are looking for hope, and that hope is going to come in the form of a vaccine. Your colleague, Christine Elliott, the Minister of Health, has just been quoted just recently within the last hour that she's very concerned with how things are going with the procurement of vaccines for the federal government, with the federal government. How does this work for Ontarians? What can you tell us about how your government will be procuring those vaccines for our citizens?
Well, I can tell you, Adrian, that the vaccination, acquisition of vaccines and the distribution of vaccines in an ethical and a prioritized way is our number one mission right now. And that's why we announced the Chief of Staff of the former Chief of Staff of the Canadian Armed Forces, General Rick Hillier, to lead that mission and that task force. I can also tell you that we work very closely with our federal partners and have been working very closely. And so we'll continue to do that, because this is our number one priority. Apart from keeping people safe now and bridging to when we get the vaccines, this is our mission. And we got to do it as effectively as we can. And there's a lot of logistics involved in that. I can't speak to the specifics. I am aware that the federal government, though, has ordered significant supplies of vaccines. In fact, Canada leads the world per capita in the amount of vaccines per person that have been ordered. But of course, they have to come from other places. There's different attributes to each vaccine. You know, the Pfizer one has to be kept at -75, -80. The Moderna one has to be kept at -20. Both of them have to have their 2-dose vaccines that have to be 21 days apart. Sounds simple, but you got to transport that. You got to store it. You got to give the first shot by someone who knows how to do the shot. Not so simple. Not everyone can do it. Then you got to get that same person 21 days later. The AstraZeneca one is a lower temperature, but it's also a 2-dose vaccine. These are the first 3 that I'm aware of that have reached the targets of through phase 3 and acceptable sort of rates of success. 95% in the first 2, and I believe 65% in the third. And the AstraZeneca one has to be 30 days apart. So there's tremendous logistics. What I do know is that this is our number 1 priority, and we will work very closely hand in glove, as we have through all this pandemic, with our federal counterparts to get this done for the people of Ontario.
Can you give us a time frame, Mr. Minister?
Well,
We've got to put you on the spot a little bit.
I've heard from Dominic LeBlanc, who's indicating that we should be starting to get some supplies in the early in the new year. But I think the federal minister for intergovernmental affairs, I would put that question to him, because they have a lot more of the facts and the information than I do. And of course, the Minister of Health, our Minister of Health, who's doing a fantastic job, Christine Elliott, and Sylvia Jones, our Solicitor General, are co-chairs of that task force. So they will have a lot more specifics, working with Rick Hillier. But I will tell you, as the minister in charge of digital, I'm going to make sure that we apply digital solutions. I think this is an opportunity for us to digitize vaccination records. And so we'll do our part, because we have to do all of this together: municipalities, provinces, federal, and of course, all individuals in Ontario.
Mr. Minister, I want to thank you very much for spending some time with us. This is a candid conversation, and we very much appreciate you taking our questions, and have a wonderful holiday season. And we look forward to seeing you on our platform again soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Adrian. Happy holidays to everyone, and be safe, you and your family. And it's great to be with the Canadian Club again.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it over to the wonderful president of the Canadian Club, Anita.
Thanks, Adrian. And thanks, Minister Bethlenfalvy, for joining us today and sharing the ministry's plan for digitizing Ontario. There were lots of different applications. I can't wait to see how those roll out. Adrian, thank you as well for moderating today's discussion. I already mentioned a couple of our upcoming exciting events, but let me mention 2 more. On Tuesday, December 8th, we're hosting Sarah Davis, president of Loblaw Companies Limited, and she's going to sit down with me for a fireside chat. And then on Wednesday, December 9th, we host a panel called ESG, from where policy meets practice. And that includes Gerald Butts, Alison Lote, Veronica Chow, and Mark Wiseman. Thank you again to Bruce Power, PwC, and Waste Connections of Canada for sponsoring today's event. And thank you to our AV supplier, Van Valkenburg Communications and LiveMeeting.ca, for making it possible for us to come together virtually today. Guests, thank you for joining us. Please stay healthy and stay safe.